Salam, everybody. Thank you for all of you who have given me their positive feedbacks. I've been told not to be shy and I've been told not to read. But unfortunately, history, such as broad as this, you cannot have it all in your head. And probably I am shy because that's my nature. Thank you so much for those who have visited our website and visited our social media and have liked and subscribed. So, welcome again to this second edition of our African journey through the Karinga experience and concept and philosophy. This is brought to you courtesy of an organization called Isaac Mirori Nyambura, which seeks to offer a long life learning experience to families. The word Karinga, which is the choice of our topic for this book, is an ancient African clarion call for a national identity, especially among the communities that lived in the southern region of Mount Kenya. This came when there was too much intermarriages between them and the Kamba community and the Maasai community, and it had reached at a point shortly before the explorers and the imperialist company from Britain and the colonizers arrived in Kenya. The clarion call was forming a pure caste nation. This also was taken up by the Maasai, and among the Maasai there was a great fight whereby they divided themselves from those who had moved from pastoralism into farming and settling, and those who maintained their ancient tradition of nomadism. So those who farmed were called Kwavi, or if you like, Akavi, and those who continued with their nomadic lifestyle were called, and still are called, Purko. Now, the name Karinga is synonymous also in Western Kenya when it arrived there in 1940s, and it was directly translated and they call it Karinya. So this gives us the beginning or the starting point of our journey through our subtopic conscientism of post-colonial Alkebulan and the experiences into the digital information age, with the aim of forming an egalitarian global village. So two things, or rather three, that I'll need to give meaning that is common to all of us. Conscientism is a word that was used in a title written by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the founding father of Ghana. In his studies in America, he studied philosophy, and this was a word that he coined that meant decolonizing Africa. Secondly, I've used the word Alkebulan. Alkebulan simply was the African name before we were called Africa. The name Africa came during the Roman Empire, and when the Roman administration posted a man called Africanus in charge of North Africa, the people of North Africa were known as the subjects of Africanus, so they were called Africans. And it is not the original name, so in this journey we shall use the original African name, which is Al-Keblan. We have talked of the digital information age, and since Kwame Nkrumah is focusing on the people who were subjugated under colonialism, we are going to focus on post-colonialism, and especially within our life experience, we among the millennials, and we are going to look at these experiences right from the year 2000, when the digital age emerged. We are going also to take advantage of the fourth industrial revolution, which is the that of information, and so information technology is going to be our dearest friend. Now, to start us off, is to demystify the fallacy of the African history, as it has been taught in our schools, that and by the way, our schools are still colonial schools in terms of content, in terms of setup, and in terms of design. So we still have a long way of decolonizing our lives. And since like in Kenya, there is a law of free basic education which runs from elementary to secondary, and it is compulsory. We do not want to subjugate children into a colonial mentality, and that's why I want to appreciate the government that has decided to change from A level and O level systems into a competence-based curriculum. So this will go a long way, and it will help to reshape our society and to emancipate our people from mental slavery. We start with the experience of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. When he went to North America for his further studies, he thought that he's going to a whole new society that was not involved in African colonialism. Unfortunately, to his surprise, Americans are Europeans, and they are guided by the Greek philosophy and the Roman administration. So, and the process of domineering or domination still continues, because when it moved from Roman Empire, it moved to the British Empire, and the British Empire birthed the American superpower, and now we are controlled by the British American companies, geopolitical directions, and they are the people who have told us that we are one global society under United Nations, but that is not the case. Still, there is plenty of inequality. Opportunities are skewed towards the West, and so on and so forth. Like, for example, in the West, the poorest country in the West is Portugal, but you look at the GDP of Portugal against any African or global South country, none compares. So our doctor goes there, he finds out that the Americans are still Europeans, and he reminds me of my professor at St. Paul's University, who went to North America for further studies. And when he introduced himself the first time in class, he introduced himself as Samuel, and the class busted into a laughter, and he was embarrassed. But the professor was kind enough to ask him, "How are you, Samuel?" Knowing that the name Samuel is not even English, it is not even Western, and it is not African, but it is Jewish. And so they were expecting somebody called Samuel will be Jewish. And this is the wrong identity that Africans have always carried around. And so my dear professor changed his name from Samuel to Sammy. So a lot of these identity crises are seen especially during slavery. And when you are caught as a slave, whether you were a slave in Africa or you were taken to what was called the new lands. And by the way, these lands are not new to Africans, because people who migrated from the Horn of Africa, which is the cradle of mankind, moved to the so-called new lands like Australia, like Americas. This means both northern, south, and central. Way before, even to as far as Yellow River in China, way before any civilization, way before the first nation to be formed here on earth, which is China. And it is a journey that I'm really urging you to walk with me, so that we can really avoid getting these experiences, and which will cause what we call culture shocks and culture erosion, and it will lead to self-hate. And so when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah realized this, he decided to want to enlighten his people. And in his book, in chapter 2 of the book Conscientism, he says that he thought America appealed to him as a neutral player, because America was supportive for the independence of Africa. But unfortunately, he found out that it was another Western regime on the far side of the Atlantic. So my worry is us carrying even the wrong history. Our history has been taught by the colonial schools, which in fact began as a deconstruction of Africanism by moving away from the open system schools to a closed door schools, where people were removed from their families, from their society, for them to acquire a new identity. And this is where the identity crisis comes in, and you find Africans being divided along those who support or who benefit from a white person or from the European, and those who have always struggled by themselves without any support of this new colonizer or oppressor, this new subjugator and oppressor in our villages. This curriculum has always taught us that our history began 1,000 years before the birth of Christ. But this is a fallacy. A lot of history about Africa was stolen in terms of artifacts and taken to Europe. This was one way of concealing the truth from the next generation Africa. And these were stolen after either a war broke out or an invasion by the European and their surrogates, meted on an innocent village. And this is how some of this information is not available. And when you Google in your search engine questions frequently asked about Africans. You will find one funny question asking whether Africans had a history. I may not blame them, because these are our fellow millennials who do not know anything about Africans because their ancestors messed with African history. The African tradition was also fought through these new religions, the religion of Christianity and Islam, and also Judaism. And especially Judaism was very unfair because it interacted with Africans way back as far as the year 1200 BC, and it sought refuge. The members of the Hebrew community sought refuge in Africa. But in the theology and in the teachings and laws, they identify Africa as a caste race. And this is where we're going to pick it up from next time. And please be African, uphold who you are. Don't be shy of who you are, because you are not an object, but you are a human being and a parent of human race. May God bless you, and may you keep well. Thank you.